Good afternoon, everyone. Hi. Hi, Anuj.
Hi.
Since everyone is around, let's just get started as people will join. First and foremost, to everyone out here, thank you for joining today's episode. Welcome to our MSME Masterclass episode 14, an exclusive webinar designed to impart insights and strategies for thriving in a dynamic world of MSMEs. We are privileged to have with us an esteemed speaker, Mr. Anuj Bansal, Director of Kalika Steel Alloys, whose journey and accomplishments in steel industry mark him as a leading voice in operational excellence and sustainable practices. Anuj academic foundation is laid with a degree of production engineering from VIT College, followed by a master's in operations research from Columbia University, New York, an esteemed Ivy League institution. This academic prowess set a stage for his remarkable career in the steel industry, beginning with his impactful tenure at Kalika Steel Alloys since 2015. Here, Mr. Bansal made a significant strides stabilizing the newly commissioned pre-metals rolling mills, driving production by up over 50% in less than 2 years. His innovative leadership led to the development of a skilled team of engineers, technicians, pioneering the multi-slit process and making Kalika Steel the first and only company to slit 8 mm into 5 bars. Beyond his technical and operational achievement, Mr. Bansal is deeply committed to his social responsibility and skill development. He leads a mission funded by the World Bank focusing on upskilling 10th grade dropouts to make them employable in the industry. This initiative reflects his dedication to creating opportunity and enhancing workforce's capabilities. Moreover, Mr. Bansal is a strong advocate for sustainable and environmentally friendly practices in steelmaking. His commitment to green steel making is evident through his participation and speaking engagements at national level conferences, where his emphasis is the adoption of green and carbon-led practices in the industry. As we embark on today's episode, I would like to have Mr. Anuj Bansal share his wealth of knowledge and experience in this field of TMT and steel. Thank you for joining us today, sir.
Thank you so much, Nikhil. I think these are very kind words that you have spoken very highly of me. Thank you for that. And in this session, I'm looking forward to sharing whatever knowledge that I have acquired along my journey in the steel industry. And I hope that it is beneficial to the audience at large.
Absolutely. That's why all of us are here. Thank you for joining us, Anuj. As we get started, maybe Anuj, could you shed some light on Kalika Steel Alloys and what you guys do here?
Yeah, so Kalika Steel Alloys and Private Limited was founded way back in 2003. We just celebrated our 20 years foundation day on 1st of November. So we are a 20-year strong company. We started really small with a 8-ton furnace. So we were having a very low production that time. We were involved in buying scrap and making ingots out of it. MS ingots, and then we traded them to other rollers who then made TMT and other structural products with them. So we went slowly and scaled up our ingot making. Then in 2006 we came up with our own rolling mill where the brand Kalika was first established. We started branding and advertising it on a large scale. And this was the first time in the secondary steel industry, as they call it now, that a brand was being made for TMT. Otherwise, people used to just roll out without any brand name, and they used to sell it as if it was a commodity. So we were one of the first few players who emphasized on branding and marketing, and that got us really famous in a very short span of time. We had to make multiple expansions, and then we expanded our rolling mill finally in 2015, and that's when also I joined the organization. So this rolling mill was a big leap for us technologically, and also speaking about capital investment. So we could have gotten the same mill for a much lesser price if we would have gone in for an Indian manufacturer or a Chinese manufacturer. But our senior directors, so Kalika is a team of 4 partners, and we are all second generations in this business. So they have always emphasized on buying the highest technology, best technology that is available, and we went in for the German Primetals mill. So it was a really big investment for a secondary steel player, and a lot of people had their eyes on us whether this would work or not. And we are going to roll like TMT, which is the lowest margin product in the steel portfolio, and how beneficial it was. It is going to be for the company. But slowly and steadily, the mill got commissioned. It started running smoothly, and so we have kept on going on from there, expanding our production, going into newer markets. So we were earlier concentrated on Maharashtra. Now we have gone into Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Karnataka, and we are hoping to grow stronger each day.
Thank you, Anuj, for talking about your excellent business and how dedicated you have been over the years in the steel industry. So, as we were talking about, the various branding and the necessity of differentiating the TMT products, I think we can directly, start off with the most crucial question here related to TMT. Can you explain the key differences between what is primary and a secondary TMT, and why are these differences so important?
So basically, the key difference is the raw material that is used to manufacture. These are basically manufacturing routes: the primary steel route and the secondary steel route. So primary steel route uses virgin iron ore that is mined out of the earth's crust, and then it is heated and reacted with different chemicals, refined, and then the steel is made out of it. Whereas in the secondary route, something which was already steel, which was like, you can say car parts, you can say used steel, industrial scrap, or other kinds of scrap, they are given a new life after melting. So metals have a property where they can be recycled n number of times while they retain their original properties. So steel is also one such metal, and the secondary route focuses on that. Now, when it comes to secondary route, there are two bifurcations again. So there is one which is called rerolling, and one is recycling. So rerolling is when you are buying suppose you are buying a scrap of angles and channels, and you are giving it a proper shape. You are heating it to 1100 degrees and then reshaping it to a rebar. Steel at 1100 degrees becomes like a clay, so it can be molded and given in any other shape. So that is the re-rolling industry. And in the recycling industry, what happens is the scrap is completely melted at 1600 degrees Celsius, and then it is casted and molded into new forms, and finally it is rolled. So the basic difference between re-rolling and recycling is that in re-rolling, you do not have any control over the quality. Whatever scrap you get is going to end up in the finished product as well. But in the recycling, there is a chance where you can purify the quality, because when it is in the liquid state, all the impurities rise up as they are applied. When you mix oil and water, oil rises up and water settles down because of the density. So the same thing happens with steel. Like, there can be a lot of impurities in the scrap, but all the impurities are going to be lighter than the iron density. So they float out, and they can be refined during the process. So that is the basic difference between the primary and the secondary steel industry. Now, on the second part of the question, why they are important? They are important because of the quality constraints that they carry in the process. So, like I told you, the re-rolling industry, the industry that relies on the heating and rolling of the metal, they do not have a very good quality control over the process. So it is important to know what kind of process the finished TMT bar has gone through before it comes to your hand.
Thank you, Anuj, for explaining in detail. That kind of enlightens me on the core differences between the two products, primary and secondary steel. But I often hear or realize that there are some kind of misconceptions surrounding both these products, secondary and primary, primary and secondary TMTs. Could you shed some light on some common myths that exist in the industry, maybe related to you should only use primary, you should not use secondary, things like these? Maybe you could shed some light on it?
Yes, of course. So before I dive into this, I wanted to add to the previous question. The primary steel rolling process or the secondary steel rolling process all have to conform to the same IS standard, like the same Indian standard, and that is IS 1786. So the government of India does not discriminate between primary and secondary industry now. Earlier, there were some limitations for the secondary players, but under the current ministry, they have all been removed and everyone has a fair playing field now. So, since they are both affirming to the same standards, the quality standards for any of the players is going to same, provided they adhere to the standards laid. Now, to answer your questions about the key differences, the myths and misconceptions that exist in between primary and secondary, the first and foremost is the use of scrap. I think that this topic is very highly misunderstood amongst the buyers, steel buyers, that scrap is bad because it carries such a connotation that scrap is usually wastage, and would you want to build your house out of something that was a waste for someone? So, like I mentioned in the previous point, scrap is not bad. The process that has to melt the scrap and has to make it into a TMT finally has to be controlled at various levels. Impurities have to be removed, and then it is as good as primary or the virgin, or you as you call it. So that is, in fact, the government of across all the countries have been emphasizing on the use of scrap, as it is not exploiting the earth's resources. So slowly and steadily different economies have come forward and in fact banned the export of scrap, and they are motivating their own in the local industries to use the scrap and turn it into steel. So that is one of the major misconceptions that people have, that scrap is bad and we should only use virgin or TMT, and the TMT from scrap is in fact not up to the standards. They all follow the good quality standards. You just have to make sure that the TMT that you're buying has a test certificate which is meeting the IS standards. The other price that the other point that differentiates the primary and the secondary, and there is one very big myth that goes around, that the prices of the secondary steel is very highly volatile. Now the recycled steel, I'll call it henceforth, is highly volatile, whereas the primary steel, they offer a price which is constant throughout the month. So constant price indicates a bit of fair pricing and good pricing. This is a common misconception, but actually this is far from truth. The primary industry share in the TMT market is very less. It is not more than 10 to 15%. So the secondary players are very high in number, and there is a very fierce competition that takes place in the market amongst these players. So any parameter affecting the market is discounted or is premiumed at a very fast pace in this industry, which I think is beneficial for the buyer, because the price that he is getting on any given date is reflecting the different factors that have occurred on that day. It is not like maybe there was a price hike in the end of last month and the new price that was set in the first week was, let's say, 50,000, but towards the end of the month the prices have come down to 45,000. Why would someone want to pay 50,000 in that case, right? So volatility is there, but it is for the greater good. It is for the buyer's advantage. So that is one myth that is happening amongst the buyers, confused between primary or secondary. Then usually when you go out in the market and look for prices, you will always find a delta between the prices of the recycled steel and the primary steel. It may be ranging from like 4,000-5,000 to 7,000-8,000 during highly demanding markets. So people have this misconception कि यार महंगा है तो अच्छा ही होगा, cheaper might not be up to the mark, but this is absolutely not the case. The reason why primary is expensive is because it is a very highly there are very less players. So, and there are in India, if you want to talk about, there may be around 4 to 5 primary players, that's it. So there is a very good chance of, I'm not saying that they do anything of that sort, but there is a very good chance that there can be an understanding amongst them that they can fix prices with their parities between them. But in the secondary industry, which is controlling about 80 to 85% of the rebar market, there is a high fragmentation, and each player is pricing for his own market. So the prices are fair and they are much leaner than the primaries. Like the primaries have a very high overhead of manufacturing due to the huge facilities that they have, whereas the secondaries have a very good cost control as compared to them. So the prices are, that is why, less, unless there is no, like, both the bars are conforming to the highest standards, I don't think the price should be a concern for. In fact, it is for the benefit of the buyer.
I think that was very descriptive. Thank you for explaining in detail related to from pricing fluctuation concerns from recycling. There's so much to cover from that question, I guess. So I think we could move forward in between. I remember you talked about around maybe 2016, I think, that government enforced certain policy, you said, right, on the usage of secondary steel, and before it became a playing field. So I think back then also you guys were also working on recycling and working on secondary TMT. How did tackle the situation then? Like when they were only want you to use primary steel but not secondary steel, even though they're pretty similar or have a good usage on both the products.
So the governments have not been against the secondary industry, not been against the recycling industry. The government was against bad quality steel coming to infrastructure projects, which are high investment and high risk of. So they wanted that good products only come. So back in the 1980s, the recycling industry was not as widespread, but it was more of re-rolling. So like we talked about, re-rolling mein you don't have very good quality control. So that is why the governments really wanted TMT from the primary sector only, because the recycling industry was not very developed that time. But slowly and steadily, with the development of the economy and the players as well, the players jumped from re-rolling to recycling, and then from recycling also they kept on going for bigger and bigger volumes. And with volumes, you get more automation, highly advanced machinery, which promises a very quality product reliably over a longer run of production runs. So that is when also we started, as associations, we started approaching the government that when we are also following the same standard that the primaries are following, why don't we get to offer you the bars, and why is it only the primaries? So it was a lot of lobbying, lot of different organizations in different states came together, and we kept pushing at it. And the current ministry, which has been in place for the last 10 years now, they have been very supportive, and it is in this term also that this bill was passed, that now there will be no discrimination between the route that is followed for manufacturing. It is just the highest standards that are going to matter. So there is this huge highway that got constructed between Mumbai and Nagpur, the Maharashtra Samruddhi Marg. So that highway also, we supplied almost more than 1 lakh tons of material from Jalna. Jalna is where Kalika Steels is located, and it accounts for almost 10% of the total TMT bar production of India. So it is a huge manufacturing hub. So I'm speaking not just for Kalika Steels, but for the industry at large.
That's a great project. So I wanted to know this one thing, since you mentioned initially government was apprehensive about the quality of secondary steel, the recycled and re-rolled steel. Now, do you think at this stage, at this 2023, do you think the quality is equal or surpasses primary steel by any chance?
I wouldn't say surpasses. The quality control measures that the primaries have adopted are second to no one in the world. But I would also at the same time want to say that the secondary steel or the recycling industry has also matched up to their standards. So to just make a little point, the mill that we set up, the rolling mill that we set up in 2015, it was the smallest of its kind in the world. It had a capacity of 250,000 tons per annum. So this was designed specially for that kind of production levels. Otherwise, the bigger size was 0.5 million ton or 1 million ton. And it is the same mill that the Tatas or the Jindals use. So it is just like, an iPhone with 256 GB capacity or 512 GB capacity. The technology is the same, but the capacities are different. So along with us, many other players have also adopted similar technologies. So when you adopt these technologies, which are highly automated, less human dependent, and you're using good quality control procedures, good SOPs are followed with a highly skilled team, you are bound to get products which are on the same level as the primaries or any standard across the world for that matter.
I really like that metaphor on different capacities on the mobile phone. So, for just like short question also, like you said, you again back to that, you supplied for this project and you part a lot of your steel came from your company. Did you also like for this construction of this project, you also put secondary steel also, right?
Yes, secondary steel is basically recycled steel. That we have, in fact, now our associations are to delete that word from the dictionary. Secondary somehow has that word second in it, so it by default means that it is second to something, but it is not how it was originally meant. So I would refrain myself by calling it recycling. So a lot of steel for that construction of highway has gone from the recycling steel industry, and not just that highway. In fact, it has gone to a lot of like there are so many ports that are being built along the coastal regions which demand corrosion resistant steel, CRS steel. So we have supplied that, and we have also supplied to railways. Like we recently got approved in the railways, and so we are supplying to any heavy infrastructure project that demands the highest quality standard that is available.
Makes sense. I understand a little more. So while we are discussing at certain stages and certain technology of advancements in the steel making, the process and all, could you like maybe elaborate on how Kalika steel alloy ensures quality and integrity of certain TMT products, and how have you adopted technology and innovation to keep up to the latest trends?
To keep up to the latest trends, we have to travel, we have to see in different expos and stuff, like what is the latest thing that is going on, and how we can adopt that to Indian conditions, how we can adopt that to TMT. Because whenever TMT comes to anyone's minds, it falls under very low margin products for the steel portfolio. So any new technology absorption involves a lot of capex, lot of cost, and lot of R&D that goes on, and to justify it against a low margin product, it becomes a very challenging task. But now that we have scaled up to good levels of productions, it is easy for us to absorb that cost, and we keep trying out new technologies which are available in different countries, and that is how we stay up to the mark, and we try to maintain our prices at a very competitive rate. But whenever you are adopting technologies, your product quality goes up, because any technology is going to give you more reliability and more consistency. That is the key focus area for us.
Absolutely. So while we were talking about, since you have to like keep up with the trend and lot of technologies, have you ever had to face like difficult challenges or roadblocks because of innovation or technological advances, where you felt, okay, we might be lagging behind on something, there might be a better way to do this, a cheaper or more efficient way to handle processing of TMT? Were there such situations you had to deal with?
Yeah, this happened with us back in 2011 actually. That is when a step between the casting and the rolling procedures was completely eliminated. So just to give you a little background, earlier what used to happen is we used to cast billets. The billets got cold, and then they used to go to the rolling mill, you reheat them, and then you roll it again. So the cost of reheating is very high because it involves the use of coal or oil or gas, whatever is available cheaply in your area, and then there is some scaling that goes on there. So this cost literally got wiped out when people who had a caster and a rolling mill in close proximity, they started like rolling straight out of casting, so they skipped that step. For us, this was a very big challenge because our rolling facility was very away from the casting facility, so it was just not possible for us. and that time was around 2012, 2013. The industry was also going through a very bad spiraling prices. So that we had a very difficult time, and that is when we had to commission the new mill, close to our melting and casting facility. So an investment at a very bad in a very bad market when our competitors had already moved on in that technology. So that was one difficult time for us.
Understandable, I think, and you faced through those difficulties and you finally grew to this level. That's a great challenge that you have fought and come as a winner. So now at this point, so much we have discussed on this TMT and various aspects. There's something questions we could help for all the manufacturers in the audience, is that maybe for smaller businesses or brands which are trying to focus on niche markets, how do they stay ahead of competition? How do they keep making sure that they get successful business, new clients, loyal clients?
I'll speak what has worked for us. Like for us, the emphasis has always been on very high quality products, because whenever you are trying to push through new markets, through niche markets, you are going to be fighting with players who are already on top of the list of manufacturers who are delivering very high quality products. So you have to have a very strong quality control process and very reliable quality control process. Once you have a solid product, I think you just need to go out there and brand yourselves, because there is going to be a price difference between you and the market leader. You can easily get an entry there. So I would say you should not be shy. You should go in for approvals, government approvals, go in for high value clients. They have a very long vendor registration processes, but they are truly worth it. Like for us, I'll just give you a small example. This was way back in 2016 or 17 when we first got into a transaction with Adani Group. So they were building a port somewhere in Kerala. So it is a huge distance for us and a huge quantity. They buy in bulk. So it was a very difficult decision for us, because it was obviously on credit, not on advance payment. So it was a very difficult choice for us if we should deliver that material to them and how it will work out. But we took that leap of faith, because Adani is second to no one in the market. They have huge infrastructure projects in their hands, and we took that leap of faith. As and when we were going through the transaction, there are so many contractors who are working for Adani, and the word spread out across those network of contractors that hey, Kalika is sending their goods here and they are really good quality products at a very good price. And we got demand from almost all areas of from India, that they came seeking out for us. Like they reached out that can you deliver here. But of course, steel is a very heavy commodity to transport, and then it becomes difficult to compete in very far off regions. So we got a good client share from there, and we kept on building. Our clientele kept on improving, and that itself speaks for you at later points. So that's how we do it.
That's a nice way of approaching it. Also, since we're on this continuation on this, since as a businessman, as a manufacturer who's been in this industry for so many years, that you have seen so many such challenges that you talk about, where things might have slowed down, stopped, but you just fought on ahead. To all the budding entrepreneurs, people who are already in this industry trying to look for advice, what would be the top few advices or advice would you give to our audience in the manufacturing space? And what maybe some examples of best practices that they can also implement to make sure they can run, scale up their business, grow in success?
I think I've already talked about all of them, but to re-emphasize, I would just say that you should go in for the best technology that is available. Like focus more on reducing your OPEX than CAPEX. See, I am in a mass production industry, so we are always concerned about the OPEX more than the CAPEX. So we try and adopt good technologies that can yield solid products, build a good team of engineers and technicians, highly skilled people, retain them, have good HR policies, so that you have your manufacturing sorted. And then of course marketing and the different channels that you have to use for marketing. that is the basic advice that I can give. I'm also quite new, so I can't be preaching a lot of stuff. I'm also learning as I'm going.
That's very humble of you, Anuj. Thank you for all of that. I think that kind of stops with the questions I have for my side. But while we were running this session, I think we got a couple of questions ahead of the session. And maybe these questions you might have addressed in the session, but I would like to, ask these questions from the side of our audience. I think we also have this one of them here right now, Mr. Yusuf Bukwala from Omega Steels. Which is better and what would for it and its purposes, primary or rolling TMT bar?
The primary and rolling is basically primary and recycled we'll talk about. Re-rolling steel is out of question for me. So primary and recycled steel, as far as they are conforming to the same IS standards, you can ask for a test certificate. Almost all the recycled steel players offer test certificates. You can get it tested at different third-party labs, and to make sure that the chemical reports and the physical reports that are given match the product which is actually delivered. And once that is there, I think it is both are equal. You can choose whichever is good for you. As far as deliveries and accessibility to market is concerned, I think the recycled industry has an edge over the primaries there, because the primaries usually have concentrated markets and they have very limited distributors across India who deal in bulk quantities. So when you're going in for smaller purchase sizes, you need to be looking at who can be a better bet. So that's a subjective thing, but as far as quality standards are concerned, I think both are equal.
Thank you, Anuj, for answering. I hope that answers Yusuf's question. We got a question from Mr. Himanshu from Sharma Enterprises. What strategies can secondary TMT bar manufacturers adopt to expand their market reach across India?
The basic strategies that you have to adopt is better branding and marketing, because in any market that you try to enter, there is already some players who are existing. So you need to educate the customers in general over there about your brand, about your history, about your clientele, and win over them. Start slowly, and then the word spreads. Word of mouth is the best publicity, of course, but you need to start by educating the customers and then try to enter newer markets.
Makes sense. I think that kind of answers Mr. Himanshu's questions. While we do that, I think we can also talk about a question we got ahead of time from Mr. Hatim Fakhri from National Steel. I am a reseller of TMT and I opened a new store. Could you kindly guide to which kind of practices I should follow for pricing, as the market can be pretty volatile?
Markets are very volatile. Like I was saying, the primaries have a constant price, fairly constant as compared to the recycled industry. So the reasons for the volatility have also been covered in the earlier part of this talk. So now the practices that you have to adopt is, people usually buy in bulk fearing the speculative market conditions, and nowadays with WhatsApp and other social media applications, word spreads out very easily. Any market takes a little bit of rally, all other markets start picking, like demand in other markets also pick up. So in such conditions, usually what happens is dealers panic and they buy in bulk. But this bulk quantity, if it is more than what he can chew, then this can be detrimental, because the prices come down also very easily. So basically what I would advise is, you should buy at all the prices and sell at all the prices. Stocking of TMT can be a little risky. So that is the basic way to fight volatility, I think, in any market condition, in any product also.
Yeah, thank you. I think that answers Hatif's question. I think on the follow-up one, we are having a conversation. Mr. Srujan had like a couple of questions, I guess. Hi, how can I find if a TMT company is producing rerolled or recycled? Do the companies openly show it in their website if they're rerolled or recycled? And I think the follow-up question to that would be, can you compare the TMT or Rungta or Mangal TMT if you are aware of these companies? I think he was wanted to understand an opinion on this. If they are asking if you can find out if they're rerolled or recycled, and a good idea on which would be a preferred TMT product, I guess.
I think you have to do a little bit of research Any recycling industry involves a lot of capex, and they have been there for quite some time. I think if you go through the website, if you go through Google reviews, you ask in the markets also, you can get knowledge about what kind of company is doing what. So I don't think it would be that big of a challenge to research. But yeah, you have to do your diligence, before you choose. And the second part of the question was between Rungta and Mangal. What was that?
I think the question was which TMT do you think is more preferred, Rungta or Mangal, based on quality, which is like a better quality?
It is really difficult for me to comment on this. I think as far as they are as per the highest standards, I think both are good.
I think that kind of answers the question. Okay, I think yes. There's one more question on related to the TMT manufacturing process, I guess. Why this recycled steel manufacturers do not provide coil TMT for 8, 10 and 12 diameter, while primary steel players such as JSW, Tata and SAIL provides the same?
It's about the market that they have basically, because the recycling steel industry has been known for producing straight bars. Like traditionally, conventionally, they have produced straight bars, and the demand for straight bars is very high in the construction space. So that is what sells more than the wire rod. The coil form TMT is only used for making rings and stirrups for the lower diameters 8, 10 and 12, which he has rightly mentioned. So I think that is the basic difference why the recycled steel industry has not ventured more in the wire rod industry. As and when the demand starts picking up, I'm sure they can move to that kind of variation also.
I hope that kind of answers Kumar's question. I think as we are coming closer to the session, I think we'll pick up one last question from Mr. Somesh Gupta from BK Manufacturers. Hi Anuj, thanks for the informative session. I want to ask what all current market trends which are influencing the demand for primary and secondary TMT bars in this industry are, or are there any other major factors which can influence the demand right now?
The current factors that are influencing the demand is so India has been an outlier in the global scenario right now for as far as the demand for TMT bars is concerned. I mean, China, which is more than 50% of the world steel production, has been undergoing a huge recession over the last 2 years. So the demand for TMT and the real estate industry is very bad over there. Europe and Russia, of course, due to the war, the major manufacturing capacities have been disabled because of high cost of electricity and energy there. Steel, as everyone knows, is a very energy intensive industry. So Europe and Russia, a lot of scaling back of production has occurred over there. US is also undergoing inflation, high interest rates and so the real estate there also has taken a big. India, surprisingly, because of the huge infrastructure investment that the ministry has taken up, and so India has, like they are calling it the Amrit Kal, and we can of course see around us metro projects are coming up, new highways are being built at every place, new ports are being constructed. So the demand for TMT in general is very high in India. So that is it is very difficult to estimate how factors around the world are going to affect that thing in India. But of course, the prices of raw material like iron ore and coke, whenever China goes into buying of these raw materials, the prices across the globe jump up, and then that affects the prices in India, of course, and then that generates some demand. So these things are going to be.
There's so many factors and attributes that which can decide the trends of this industry. I see that there's so much which can change suddenly. I mean, thank you, and I hope that answers Mr. Somesh's question. And as we come closer to the end of the session, I would like to thank everyone, the audience, and especially Mr. Anuj for thank you for this enlightening session about TMT, primary and secondary. Things that I've not known before are now out in the front. I hope from this session, everybody has learned a little more about TMT so that they can make more wiser and stronger decisions when it comes to choosing the right product. And I again heartfelt thank you for Anuj for like spending his time with us to explain in detail about all of these. I hope everybody enjoyed this. I hope you can use this learnings and go ahead. Until next time, thank you everyone. See you in the next episode.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nikhil.
Thank you,
And thank you the team at JSW, One MSME also. My friends Bijendra Yadav, who I think initiated this thing also. And the audience who spared so much time of their busy schedule in listening to this stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Anuj. I wish you a great day today. See you.